So, what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to tell you who I am, if I remember, and we're going to talk about what even is an OSPO and why is the UC OSPO Network special, and how to OSPO, and some nuances about that. There we go. Okay, so what is and also, we missed it. There we go. Okay, about me. I am the community manager for the UC OSPO Network. And if you haven't heard of OSPOs before, OSPO is Open Source Program Office. And I am still, in fact, the docs lead and mentor at DistributeAid, and I was previously a developer advocate at Suborbital Software Systems and a math lecturer before that. Okay, so what does an OSPO do? So this is a definition of an academic OSPO, but these principles apply basically to the general case of OSPO. And we do things like helping to find funding for projects and sharing best practices, educational efforts, and tools and infrastructure, working with tech transfer, and that's lawyers in academic speak, things like that, policy. So we do some open source actually at the University of California. You might recognize some projects that have come out of the University of California. And so what's special about the UC OSPO Network is that while there have been academic OSPOs before ours, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We are a little bit new and different in that we are the first network of OSPOs. So where previously, your Johns Hopkins or your George Washington University were a campus with an OSPO, the University of California actually has 10 campuses, but 6 of them have OSPOs, and those are all put together in a network, and that's led by a group of us that are comprised of representatives from each of the OSPOs. And then there are 3 network-wide roles. One of them is me, one of them is Virginia, and I saw Carla, who is not here. And let's see, so we use 3 core themes to drive our work. Sustainability, discovery, and education. And we're going to talk more about those. So we're going to talk about how to OSPO, or at least how we OSPO. And that is actually more than a 20-minute talk, how to OSPO. So in fact, I'm going to provide you with these websites where you can learn more about how to spin up an OSPO if you are interested in doing that. And for the moment, we're going to just focus on what's new that we've learned. And in particular, since I am a community manager and this is the community track, we're going to be looking through a community lens in particular. So going back to our organizing themes, and to be honest, I did not understand when we first started why we had themes. And it seemed a little bit like, why do we do this? So, but I get it now, because now I see that we can use those themes to organize our thoughts and our work, because there are always more things that could be done than you actually can do, right? So you have to have some kind of organizing principles. And the ones that we chose are sustainability, discovery, and education. So I don't imagine that this audience needs much of an introduction to what sustainability means in the open source context. But on the campuses, not everybody is already familiar. So we have some education to do around what sustainability means in the open source context. And we help projects with developing best practices, and we are spinning up a containerization service. We do community management, and we have a very, very beta, maybe alpha, project health tool. And you can check it out if you like at this link. And we also have the discovery piece. And that's where we're looking at things like who's working on open source at the university, what are they building, and how does an open source interact with the work that people are doing? And then the really sort of difficult question there is like the meta question, like how do we even answer these questions? And we have kind of a two-pronged approach. One is that we are building an open repository browser, and Juanita is going to be giving a talk about that tomorrow. And we also have done a UC-wide survey looking at how open source interacts with the survey participants' work. And Virginia is going to give a talk about that tomorrow as well. And the discovery theme has pretty strongly intersected with my community work, because I didn't get a Rolodex when I landed. I didn't get like, here are all the people that you need to contact. It was go find out who we need to contact. And so far, we've mostly been doing that by crawling GitHub and searching for keywords, and that is great. Looking for UCSD or UC San Diego, University of California, San Diego. Yep, and that's cool. But we've had some good luck with reaching out to professors who are running research labs, but we have to find out who they are first, because it's not just all research labs. It's like research labs where the work features something to do with open source. Mass emails, unfortunately, are not especially effective. The ones that seem to go really well are the ones where like I'm addressing the person by name and I'm including details in the email that show that I have actually looked at their work, which makes sense, but it's really hard to scale. And so what's the lovely phrase? There's more work to be done here. Yep. And our third theme is education. So we, in the education working group, have been aggregating prior art in the OSS education space, because there are a lot of wheels that have already been invented here that we do not need to reinvent. But sometimes there aren't resources already in existence that work perfectly for the academic context, or maybe the UC context in particular. And so we're going to be creating some resources to fill those gaps in the next year or so. So we ask big questions like, who are we educating? And in industry OSPOs, I think that it's less of a question perhaps, because it's like, well, we're educating people who are interested in learning more about open source stuff, right? But in the university context, there are these people that we call students. And when we refer to education, it's easy to assume that the educational materials that we are developing are targeting the students. And in the OSPO context, that's definitely not always true, maybe not even usually true. We're more likely to be targeting faculty and staff who want to learn more about how to contribute to open source, or how to get more contributors for their projects, or that kind of thing. So if we had like an intro to Git resource, for example, we have to think about whether that resource is intended for people who are preparing to teach a workshop versus people who are self-learning. And could a single resource serve both of these groups, or are there needs two distinct, and there really need to be separate ones? And my mouth's super dry, so I'm gonna get some water. So, yeah, and then I experience a shared resource challenge, which is definitely unique to the network experience, because I operate at the network level. I am not like of a particular campus, so I am not already embedded in any of the campus communities. I work remotely and I don't visit the campuses that often. And so there's this challenge where it's like, I'm trying to create a community in a space that I'm not a part of. And that's awkward, you know? And so that, yeah. I realized that I shouldn't be the face, so to speak, of all the campus meetups, that it works better if the campus, the OSPO leadership from that particular campus lead meetings instead of having attendees sort of imprint on me, as it were, because I'm not there. But I am also building kind of a meta community of across all of the OSPO campuses across the network, and I'm definitely a part of that community, so I do lead those kinds of meetings. And I also have office hours that are open to anyone from any campus or not a campus, whichever. We've had some surprises in the community space, good surprises. That IT folks are often the biggest cohort at our meetups, and they're both using and contributing to open source, but their needs are different from the needs of the faculty and research staff. But I will not tell you what those differences are because Virginia is going to tell you tomorrow. So, spoilers. And faculty and staff, not so much students, are the primary attendees of our campus meetups. Students are always invited, but we just get a lot more engagement back from faculty and staff, at least so far. So not actually a surprise that the hidden contributors, so the people who write code but don't identify as software people, are the hardest to find. The hidden people are the hardest to find. But I think that if you write a library for doing sentiment analysis on poetry written by monks, solitary monks in the 9th century, and then you share that code, that you in fact are an open source contributor. And so those kinds of people, those are the ones that are kind of the hardest to find. But I think that they represent the greatest untapped resource in open source in academia. And then what was surprising about that, though, is that campuses that have a really robust, really strong open source presence already are sort of the least likely to be looking for those hidden contributors because their numbers are already higher, relatively speaking, than other campuses' numbers. And so those contributors are sort of even more hidden on the campuses that are the strongest in open source. So that's an interesting kind of dichotomy. So building community connections. Let's talk about some things that work. We'll start with the suboptimal perhaps, and then move to the good stuff. And the hard part is we can't do every good idea, unfortunately. And there are so many good ideas, and especially you go to conferences and there are so many good ideas, but you, nope, cannot. And then there's a part that makes me grumpy, which is that our people won't use anything but Slack. Nope. I would like to use Discourse or something, but if they won't read it, then that's not actually communication, right? So I have to go where they are, and that is Slack. And the part that makes me sad is we're on a grant, and grants run out. And so I realized recently that I'm going to need to do some succession planning to figure out who's going to take care of these communities that we're building if we don't find alternative funding, which is actually kind of hard right now. You might have heard about that. And the best part about building these connections is matching contributors to projects and vice versa. Like, that excitement when a contributor finds a project that they can contribute to, or like an aspiring contributor finds a project they can contribute to for the very first time, or maintainers get contributions for the first time, it's just really, really satisfying. And getting to be part of communities like this one is pretty great too. So thank you for coming to my talk, and you can keep up to date with our activities at the network if you are interested at our network website, and you can contact me via email or on Mastodon. Thank you very much.
So we're up against the coffee break right now. If you want to go to the coffee break, please go ahead and excuse yourself. If you have questions or want to hear other people's questions, stick around and we can do those questions now. But I don't want to make it awkward for anybody who's like, oh yeah, I need some more caffeine. No judgment if you need to walk out and write this one. I'm not going to take attendance. Awesome. Can we start with you?
Thank you.
Yes.
Laura,
Hi.
I'm curious whether or not your OSPO has connections with the law schools in the UC system.
Not much, I would say, right, Stephanie? Like, not really. We have a Slack, in fact, for everybody who is interested in open source who is associated with the UC. And I kind of think that there was somebody from Hastings, formerly Hastings, what is it now? College of the Law? Yeah. But I think that's it so far.
UC OSPO isn't part of the network yet, and they would probably be the closest to large campus, so we could connect a lot with them. I'm not sure how that went.
Wait, which one?
UCSF.
UCSF doesn't.
Communities.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, they're the closest to them.
Right. Oh, okay.
They're not, I know that you
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's like, I can envision bringing like them
Yeah.
administratively.
Right.
With UCSF.
Mhm.
Sorry, that wasn't clear.
No.
As someone who maintains a bunch of open source projects and is looking for contributors, how do I let OSPOs know that I'm here and that we welcome new contributors?
Where are you?
Oh,
Okay. Okay. So then, hi, I'm Laura, and you can talk to me. Yeah. Oh. You and then you.
How do you work to avoid bias towards like any one particular campus? I feel like especially at big university systems, sometimes, you know, even like the term flagship itself implies like, well, you know, one campus is maybe, you know, more important or something. But how do you make sure that, you know, all the campuses, you know, they may serve kind of different kinds of populations or, you know, specialize in different areas? How do you make sure that they're all like, included in this network?
So far, it hasn't been too much of a problem, I think. If anything, perhaps Santa Cruz might be slightly overrepresented, but that's only because they were the first. So there was an OSPO on the Santa Cruz campus for 2 years before and then they sort of were the pilot program for the rest of the network. So they're just further along than the other campuses. Berkeley could be considered a flagship. What do I want to say about this? They don't need us as much. And so it hasn't come up where it's like, oh, well, people only ever want to talk about Jupyter or whatever. It's a problem that we would like to have. There we go. Yeah. Yes.
So it sounds like the network itself, like as an entity, got started because of this grant, but I assume that you applied for the grant. So where was the sort of originating idea or the originating group of people who were like, hey, we should have this organization?
Well, one of them raised right there is Stephanie, and I only joined in November, and so I literally don't know. But Stephanie knows.
Hi, Stephanie, Santa Cruz, originating from UC. We were there. Because Santa Cruz doesn't do a lot of stuff first, so we got one thing. But yeah, so we started out with a center for relationships with software, which is it was why Steph was always highlighted, because that's where I got my money first with St. Cloud and stuff. And they, and that started the center started kind of evolved into like having an OSPO kind of mandate to some extent, just from the work that we were doing, especially like getting contributors, connecting like open source that was on campus. In 2020, there was a push to start to have OSPOs in academia. That's where we're talking like we're bringing like Johns Hopkins and CMU, I think these are the first, but Johns Hopkins, RIT, and then us, and University of Vermont were like the first, and then there were two more. Blanking out on the other two were.
It's okay.
But they were like